Hey guys, this is Dave with Audio In, and this is NiceHCK's latest single planar driver IEM, the F1 Pro. And of course, this is the newest iteration of the F1, and I believe the original was released about a year ago, and that was also a planar IEM, but the original had different tuning filters, and this does not. But that's really neither here nor there, because what really matters is how the F1 Pro stacks up to the current competition. And there's only one other similarly priced planar IEM that I've recently reviewed that I've kind of been comparing this to, and it just might actually give you the same technical performance, but slightly better tuning, depending on your tuning preference, of course. We have a lot to talk about, so let's get started. As far as what's included in the box with the F1 Pro, we have the IEMs and cable, of course. It also includes a simple but well-made case and a really good assortment of ear tips. As for the price, specifications, and design, the F1 Pro comes in at $100, and it uses a new generation single 14.2mm planar driver. The driver is housed at a CNC machined aluminum housing, so they do feel quite robust, but also fairly lightweight as well. The shape of the inside of the shell and the angle of the nozzle seem to be pretty well thought through. And while it's not necessarily a small shell, I didn't have any issues achieving a comfortable fit and proper seal using the included large tips. It's probably what most would consider a medium-sized shell. As for the design and build, it's pretty good for the price. I really do like this particular shade of blue they chose, and the gold little accent on the faceplate is a nice touch as well. The cable quality is pretty good. It's pretty soft and easy to manage. It rolls up nicely, fits in the case perfectly. Overall, I think the build quality, design, the included accessories, and the presentation as a whole is very good at this price point. Okay, let's move on to the sound. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the sound of the F1 Pro. We'll start with its overall presentation, and then we'll break it down further and go into more detail. Then, as usual, I'll try and determine where I feel the F1 Pro stands in terms of its value overall and its performance when compared to some of the other competition within this price range. So the overall sound signature of the F1 Pro is what I would consider to be V-shaped. No surprise there at this price point. So we have an emphasis on the bass and treble, and then the mids are recessed. And again, this is fairly common in the budget realm. And like many of the other budget IEMs with V-shaped tuning, you are going to run into some of the same issues with unnaturalness in the mids. But what you do get is a very fun, more engaging, and exciting listening experience overall. But to break it down just a little bit further, starting with the bass. As for the bass quantity, it's pretty emphasized. And while I don't think it's causing imbalance necessarily, it does seem like it's competing with the upper mid-range a little, which does affect vocal and instrument presence to a degree. But we'll talk more about that in a minute. So you've got a fairly substantial amount of bass when you step back and you look at the signature as a whole, which is kind of to be expected with a V-shaped tuning. Now, other things I look for are extension, which is very good. So there is plenty of sub-bass rumble. I also look for dynamics, which does seem to be lacking a little bit, especially when compared to some of the other IEMs with dynamic drivers. That being said, while I do wish it gave me a little more impact and slam because of its additional bass energy as a whole, it does kind of help to give the bass a little more life and brings just a little more excitement to its general bass presentation. And then as you transition out of the bass into the lower mids, another common issue with this style tuning is bass bleed or bass muddiness. And you do have a little bit of that as well, which does affect low mid-range clarity, but it's not bad and it does maintain enough control as to not become a distraction when I'm listening. And again, that's another expected trade-off usually with this tuning approach at this price point. And of course, in return, what you do get is nice kick impact, which is needed to help recover some of the lost dynamics. And it also brings some note weight and richness to some of the instruments and male vocals as well. On the other hand, it can also cause female vocals to sound just a little bit too husky. And then moving up the graph a little further into the mid-range, there is that recession in the mids that we talked about that does cause some instruments and vocals to sound a little unnatural or sucked out. But then that energy is restored a little bit as you move further up the graph. And then when you arrive at the PINA or ear gain region around 2.5K, normally I would expect just a little more energy, maybe not as much as the Kafine Clanar. That is a little too much in my opinion, but maybe another dB or two, again, right at around 2.5 would have been nice because it seems like vocals and some instruments are slightly being overshadowed by that extra bass energy. Again, it's not bad, but if they would have added just a tad more ear gain, it may have given vocals that extra boost that would have brought them a little more to the forefront and given them a little more focus and attention. Now, surprisingly though, despite it lacking in upper mid-range energy, it does still give you very good upper mid-range detail, which is great because we know we lost some of that detail in the lower mids. And one last thing, I actually do prefer that added upper mid-range energy in the Clanar. It's a little much in general, but I think the Clanar does do a slightly better job bringing vocals and some instruments to the forefront and giving them the focus and attention they deserve, in my opinion. Now, where some of that lost energy kind of gets made up is in the treble, because there's definitely enough treble presence to offset the bass energy. And in addition, it also adds some much needed treble detail. And that was kind of the same issue with the Clanar as well, where it was lacking in control and detail in the bottom half of the spectrum, so the lower mids and bass, but brought much of that detail back to the top half in the treble and upper treble, which to be honest is where you really need it anyway. And the F1 Pro kind of does the same thing. It gives you really nice amounts of upper mid-range and treble detail, and that carries through into the upper treble as well, which really helps with shimmer, air, and also helps to reveal some of those micro nuances. As for the F1's technical performance, we already talked about detail. It's good up top, but kind of lacking in the bottom half. Soundstage is about average, which is okay at this price. It does have good forward depth and also pretty good separation as well. So like the Clanar, on a technical level, this set kind of beats out the competition, and the Clanar is the only other IM I've heard that can rival it at this price point. So not even the Z12, S12, UMA2, or Proxima can take the F1 Pro on a technical level, but the tuning of the F1 is still not quite there in my opinion. And I've said this many times before, I occasionally get a hankering for a good V-shaped tuning, and in those moments I may just reach for something like the Clanar or F1 Pro. Actually, I'm most likely to reach for my SA6 MK2 or IA600, but for budget sets, the F1 Pro and Clanar are two of the best V-shaped tuned sets out there right now. But again, my primary tuning preference is neutral with a bass boost. So most of the time I will reach for the Aria 2, Kima Classic, Galileo, and there are a couple of others. Now, of course, this is a preference thing, so I can only speak for myself. But I do think that if you are looking for a fun and more engaging set to add to your collection around $100, then this is without a doubt another set along with the Klenar that I can highly recommend. Probably, again, one of the better fun-tuned IEMs at this price point, in my opinion. And again, it's build quality, accessories, the case, the overall presentation, it's very good at this price point. So that concludes my review of the NiceHCK F1 Pro. Thanks so much for taking the time to watch. If you like my content, please take a second and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you would please like this video, please share this video. I hope you guys have an awesome day.